You probably heard the phrase salting the earth. It's a phrase that comes from the Bible, from the book of Judges in the Old Testament. After an Israelite king quelled a rebellion in his own city, he punished his people by sowing salt into their land, rendering the earth useless for generations to come. Now, there's a real fear now that Republicans will essentially do the political version of that, knowing that Joe Biden will soon be president. And we now have our first concrete example of it. It comes in the way of a nominee for the Federal Reserve Board named Judy Shelton. Now, Shelton was nominated all the way back in January, okay? And she is, to put it very gently, a crank. She believes, or believed, in a gold standard, basically defining the value of the US dollar relative to the value of gold.
Under a gold standard, you did have that stability, and I think that's what's missing. And so I like the idea of a gold standard. I mean, it could be used in a very cryptocurrency way.
All right. Gold standard, gold bugism is wackadoo. Nominating someone who wants to return to the gold standard would be like nominating someone to run America's cybersecurity apparatus who literally thinks we should abolish computers and go back to the abacus. The gold standard is backwards nonsense that would also lead to unparalleled misery. And for that very reason, Republican senators opposed her. For months, Judy Shelton simply has not had the votes. Susan Collins, for example, told the Washington Post back in July that, quote, in her past statements, Ms. Shelton has openly called for the Federal Reserve to be less independent of the political branches and has even questioned the need for a central bank. This is not the right signal to send, particularly in the midst of the pandemic. And for that reason, I intend to vote against her nomination if it reaches the floor. Sensible, a sensible statement about a crank who's been nominated. In fact, what made it all the weirder, honestly, is that Donald Trump was the one that nominated her. And Donald Trump, for all his flaws, which are legion, was not entirely wrong about monetary policy. I mean, the secret sauce of the Donald Trump economy before COVID was that because Trump had no ideological bearings, he just wanted high growth and low unemployment to get reelected. That meant a huge bump in deficits, high government spending, constantly bullying the Fed into looser monetary policy. Why he nominated Judy Shelton, no one can figure. But Republicans in the Senate were sensible enough to realize that putting her on the Fed was crazy and would be a really bad influence on monetary policy in the direction of lower growth. And no one wants lower growth. Now, she made it through confirmation in the Senate Banking Committee, but Mitch McConnell could not get her through the full Senate because several Republicans refused to vote for her. And so, as of last week, the Judy Shelton nomination to the Fed was not going to advance. Until something happened. Until Joe Biden was elected. Because now, just yesterday, we got an announcement that suddenly, magically, after Joe Biden is set to become president and inherit an economy amidst a COVID crisis with 7% unemployment and massive need for loose and aggressive monetary policy and fiscal help, oh, now the Republicans, they've decided to put gold bug crank Judy Shelton on the Federal Reserve, advancing her name for a vote on the Senate floor. Now, after Biden was elected, now we'll give you the gold bug crank on your Federal Reserve Board. This is how they are salting the field. This is the booby trap they're leaving behind, the first of many. What they will all do now is collectively pivot towards a demand for austerity and cutting deficits so they can grind the economy into the dust like they did under the last Democratic president, who they also handed a once-in-a-century disaster to. We here on All In, however, are not going to let anyone forget what they're doing.